Good morning, everyone. Today will not be a hit and run. Uh, I'm pleased to report that our last Sunday with my 95-year-old mother-in-law turned out very well, and we're very happy for having her with us after her 95 years so far. And so anyway, today we're going to talk about the Red Book and our contemporary crises, active imagination, mass migration, and climate change. This is the first uh, volume in Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions, Volume 4. So this is the first essay in this volume. And I don't know if I want to read the introduction here. I think it's fair that I do it. So at this time, and because it's the last of the 5 volumes that Thomas Arce directly participated in, I do want to share the introduction of this particular volume with you. Um, and so I'm not going to belabor it, but let me read it quickly. So, Introduction, Murray Stein and Thomas Arst. In this fourth collection of essays in the series, Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions, 16 authors display a variety of intellectual approaches and hermeneutic angles in reflecting on how Jung's Liber Novus speaks with relevance to the condition of our postmodern culture and its current state of affairs. This discussion, their discussions resonate remarkably with those of the 54 authors who have contributed to the previous 3 volumes of our series. There is little that could be called repetitious among the 70 essays. This is a testimony both to the unique perspectives of the authors and the complexity and evocative power of the Red Book. So I'm reading the introduction to Volume 4 of Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions, edited by Murray Stein and Thomas Arst. I'm continuing with the introduction at this point. As we argued in the previous volume, the Red Book belongs to the golden chain, the Aurea Catania of imaginative literature that reaches far back in time and includes medieval alchemical and ancient Gnostic writings and epic works such as Dante's Divine Comedy, Virgil's Aeneid, the Bible, Homer's Odyssey, and the Gilgamesh epic. This makes Liber Novus both new and old, or better said, it makes the old new and the new old. It connects the present era to a vast tradition of creative imagination. The commentaries of this series form a second Aurea Catania, a second Aurea Catania made of brilliant links encircling the Red Book and bringing it into intimate contact with the contemporary zeitgeist. The editors are deeply grateful to the authors for their exquisitely wrought and refined reflections that constitute the substance of this project. It has been noted by many postmodern thinkers that the one big issue lacking in the dark night of the soul that we are living in collectively is a mythic narrative that could guide and sustain the people and cultures in our globalized world that are imbued with the present spirit of the times. Ancient Rome had Virgil, the Middle Ages had the Bible and Dante, the Enlightenment had the goddess of reason and the myth of progress. But today, we are bereft of collective subscription to any such mythos. Unless one considers free capitalist expansionism and consumerism to constitute a convincing myth for our time. Simply put, emptiness reigns and there is a pressing spiritual malaise on the global level. Jung famously noted in the early 20th century that he had been left without a myth to live by, a realization that set him out on his quest through the psychological underworld, the unconscious, in search of a new God image. What he worked out in his magnificent Liber Novus was a modern myth for this time, which served him as a guiding and sustaining for reference point for the remainder of his life, and one that may suggest a myth for our time as well. Does Jung's Red Book offer a Liber Novus for postmodern people too? This was the question we put in so many words to the invited authors in this series, and their essays bring us their considered responses. Now, before I go on with this introduction, I want to observe that um, the new myth, it seems to me, is that humanity is in the process of understanding that we are all one. And so happens that yesterday I gave a eulogy for a dear friend of mine who was born in Nazi-occupied Denmark in 1940, actually on February 29th, 1940. And coming to the funeral yesterday was one of his nieces who came from Aarhus in Denmark. Or actually, she was from Copenhagen, but the family is primarily from Aarhus. And she speaks perfect English, no doubt about it. We Americans are lazy about our language learning, but the people of Europe, almost to a person, speak beautiful American English now, with the exception of the Brits, and even the Brits are starting to speak like Americans these days. But as I've lived and traveled around the world, I've realized how much smaller the world has become since I was a teenager. For example, during my high school years, I went to high school in Yokohama, Japan, and I lived in a Japanese community. I traveled every day on a train to and from my home, which was in Kamakura, an ancient capital of Japan. And the things that were noteworthy at that time was that the Japanese were already teaching their children English. At the time, it wasn't very good English. It was what we might call Japlish today, but that has changed with the internet. Now everybody speaks American English because they all hear it regularly on movies, etc. And so Uh, the myth is that we are becoming one place, and that place is the planet Earth. And it's a pretty minor place in the cosmos, as a matter of fact, as all of you know, and I'll share it here in case you don't know. But I think most people that are on this YouTube channel do know that. Let's see. What am I doing here? Okay, I'm going to share this image. Um, what's what's going on here? Don't mind me. I'm a little klutzy with my computer sometimes. There we go. Okay, so now you can see this image, and this image was taken by the Galileo spacecraft um, from Saturn, which is 800 million miles from Earth. And that little white dot in the corner, which isn't more than a few pixels, that's us. That's everything that ever existed on the planet since the beginning of time. And um, and so I think that we're starting with, thanks to the developments of the space agencies around the world, we're getting a better perspective of our place in the universe and the fact that we are the only life that we have found anywhere in the universe, and how rare that is, how desperately rare it is. Um, yeah, now how do I get out of this? That's the question. Okay, stop share. There we go. Okay. So, so what I think is, my myth is that it's been a process that's been going on for a long time. It actually probably had its initiation well before the time of Christ, as I have said many times on this station, this YouTube channel. Um, William Dalrymple has written a wonderful book, The Golden Road, which shows the commerce that was going on from Western Europe all the way over to Southeast Asia. And it was very, very well established long before Christ. And so the stories that some Buddhists tell of Christ spending his 18 mysterious years, 18 years when we don't know what he was doing, um, in India is very probable. Um, and, uh, I know that by my many trips to India, that there are many relics of the Christian era right there. In Chennai, there is the Cathedral of St. Thomas, the Basilica of St. Thomas, who was a, a Christian apostle, and supposedly they're relics, so that means actual bones from St. Thomas, who was obviously in the Christian era. Um, and so the process of the human species becoming one thing around the world has been going on for quite a long time. And it's obviously accelerating in the psychological sense, in the sense that now with social networking, we can communicate with people anywhere in the world. And and that was not the case only 65 years ago. when I first went to Japan. At that time, I only got to speak to I never got to speak to my grandparents on the telephone. And it so happens that I did speak to my father once from the United States after I had graduated from uh, high school and started college. And uh, I was able, because I was in an auto accident, to communicate with my father through the Navy communications system and actually speak to him on the telephone. And that was in November of 1964. Um, and so that was the only time that I had an international call in that 3 year period. And it was a very special occasion. My girlfriend at the time, her father had to physically take me into the nerve center of the Pentagon in order to execute the call. Today, we think nothing of calling around the world anytime. And and so, as I say, as I gave this eulogy yesterday, uh, there was a person from Denmark, from Copenhagen, who had come only for the day. She'd come the night before. She stayed during the day yesterday, and she's on her way back to Copenhagen today. And so, and I've traveled like that also across the United States and sometimes even to Europe. I even went to London once for only a day. Um, and so the world is becoming a very small place. We have to wake up and realize that. And our current president, um, I was mourning the country that we have lost, but I'm observing now that we're building a new country, and indeed, we're building a brand new world. When they speak in this book, which is 5 years old now, or let me look at the copyright, but it's at least 5 years old. Um, 2020, yeah. So it's just 5 years old now, but in that time, things have gotten even closer together. And so what we have to assume is that the world is going to be 50 years from now, it's going to be a much smaller place. And there won't be a place for people like Putin and our president anymore, because we're all going to have to find a way to get along. And so we are in the midst of creating our own myth about humanity itself and its place in the universe. Um, and let me just read your comments here. And Art says he just woke up. I know how you feel, Art. Uh, it was hard for me to wake up today too, because I am recovering from giving uh, my eulogy yesterday, and it took a lot out of me to do that, actually. And um, I don't know why. Let me just see here. Okay, don't want to be sharing that. I'm just going to share and then unshare this image one more time. Yoo-hoo. Yeah, I don't know they seem to have changed the way this functions now. So although I'm seeing myself on the screen, I guess you folks had the Earth as the pale blue dot for a bit longer than I did. So anyway, um, the full house Hal says overcoming the illusion of individuality has political consequences, according to Terence McKenna. Well, it certainly does. It's not that it's going to be easy. I don't mean to suggest that it's going to be easy for us to become one species and accept that we are one species. But nonetheless, that's the job. and and it may take 500 years for our species to become more and more integrated, but we will do. So Richard says, Christ is the tie that binds us all to all humanity. He is God incarnate. He is the only one to fulfill the Mosaic law perfectly. And the curse of the law is what we all are under, even if you are not a not a the Bible contains the keys to alchemy. Okay, not even if you're not a Christian, the Bible contains all the keys to alchemy. Well, surely it does, and so um, I think that um, Jesus Christ was a very important human being, um, and but I would also tell you that at least in my version of the King James version of the Bible, in John 1:12 and 13, what it says is that God gave all of us the ability to be children of God. And so it's not that Christ was the only child of God or son of God, but Christ himself said that all of us can be children of God. And part of my message yesterday was that my colleague who I was eulogizing was certainly a son of God. Um, and so uh, Richard and many Christians do insist on the primacy of Jesus Christ only, but um, as as um, as Jung himself said in 1956, our vision of God probably must undergo a certain change. That uh, instead of the instead of propitiating praise to an unreliable king or a child's prayer to a loving father, uh, our responsible living in our lives is our commerce with God. And God's God's good side is grace and light, and his bad side is the terrible temptation to power. And boy, do we see that right now. And so, um, that was Christ himself, uh, and the Apostle John talking about this during the Christian era itself. And so I'm grateful for Jesus Christ to show us that we all have to make um, a sacrifice in life. And we all do that. We sacrifice for our children, we sacrifice for, um, politics or what have you. We spend ourselves, we spend our lives doing things, and it's often a sacrifice. And we have to make these sacrifices in order to get on. And Christ gave us a perspective on that. Uh, and and there's no doubt that Christ is still alive among us in spirit. And so, uh, and but so is my friend who just died on October 25th. So, uh, and, oh, there's Deborah. Hi, Deborah. She says it's 2 a.m. Monday, 2:25 a.m. Monday morning, and I'm still up. Oh my gosh. And so part of the point there is exactly my point, that ultimately we're all living in the same place. And, we may speak with one another synchronously or asynchronously, but things have changed dramatically from my youth, and I expect that change to becoming regularly. Now, Richard, I do agree that the Bible contains the keys to alchemy, and I've been having an exchange um, with a dear friend of mine who lives on Vancouver Island, about 3,500 miles from here. And she's been talking about alchemy, and she said, well, yes, you can um, create gold using a super collider, and I forget what she said, some huge amount of material can create, and they've only ever uh, created 90 picograms of gold, which is not big enough for you to see, in fact. And so, but that isn't what the alchemists were about. The alchemists were about individuation, and um, one way I can think about it is a lot of the sons and daughters of nobles went to spend time with the alchemists as interns, and um, what they were doing was growing up, changing from childhood into adults, and that's how I can perceive it today, what they were doing, because they were very persistent about it for 1,700 years. Then they lost the meaning because they thought they were looking for gold, physical gold, and they never found any. But they, uh, but Jung recognized 300 years later, after all alchemy had been rooted out of the universities, that what they were doing, what they were, was early psychiatrists and psychologists. Um, and so, yes, the Bible does contain the keys to alchemy. I concur with that idea, but it's not quite what we think of it. Uh, so, and Deborah says, we're all made of stars. Yes. Okay, so let me go on. So I'm still in the introduction of volume 4, Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions. And what they mean by this is um, postmodern conditions means conditions where the boundaries are no longer black and white. In when we had World War II, we were fighting just to keep civilization. But today, that's sort of a passe idea, except if you're Ukrainian. And they have an existential crisis there. Okay, so let me read on. Volume 4 opens with an essay by Robert Mercurio, a Jungian analyst who lives in Rome, and so is at the forefront of the politics swirling around the turbulent issues of mass migration, virulent nationalist populism, and the consequences of climate change. His commentary on the Red Book speaks of its relevance for considering the psychological and spiritual challenges embedded in these pressing political, indeed practically apocalyptic struggles. This is followed by Heike Weiss Hyde's biting critique of psychiatry as it is currently practiced. Dr. Weiss Hyder has worked in this field of medicine for several decades and has extensively applied the methods of Jungian psychoanalysis to her psychiatric practice. She finds many useful guidelines for her work in the Red Book, and as a seasoned Jungian thinker, elucidates its surprising relevance for working more deeply and effectively with psychiatric patients. There are all kinds of things we could talk about here. For example, if a family absolutely denies a young woman the right to marry the love of her life, and she therefore goes out and hangs herself, assuredly that's a psychiatric problem. And but it's also a social problem, it's a religious problem. There are many aspects to it. Okay. So here they're describing the essays that appear in this book. The 4 essays that follow highlight the Red Book itself as a healing symbol for our time. Maria Helena Guerra, a Jungian psychotherapist who hails from Brazil, puts the spotlight on how Jung's journey brings the reader into contact with the other within, as well as with the other without, in a relationship of alterity. She links Jung's ideas to those of her late husband, Carlos Byington, whose developmental schema is built upon the works of Jung and Erich Neumann. The magical power of the Red Book is suggested by the well-known American Jungian author Thomas More, whose best-selling book, Care of the Soul, brought the insights of Carl Jung and James Hillman to a large international audience. More has written extensively about the re-enchantment of the world using the methods of active imagination. His argument that the Red Book offers a path for discovery of the anima mundi, a visionary experience of unity and connection among all that exists, is supported by the essays of Bruce McClellan and Gary Clark. The McClellan book at the healing rituals practical at the healing rituals described in the Red Book and relating them to ancient theurgic practices. He dissects their key importance for Jung and for those who follow his methods of active imagination and theme and interpretation. Clark introduces the findings of neuroscience in support to support the argument that such theurgic practices have a healing effect on the personality and the potentiality on the zeitgeist in general as well. Now, as you see, I am hypnotizing myself, so I'm having difficulty reading here. And if one or more of you could join me on this discussion, it would help me immensely. And I'm going to put out right now the link for participating here on YouTube directly so that I can stay awake, because I had a rather intense emotional time for the last week trying to put all these memories and such together for the eulogy that I did yesterday. And so let me see. Okay, I think this one this link that I'm going to put now into the YouTube channel, I believe will get you on with me. And if it doesn't, you can let me know in this chat. But hopefully it does. And so if one of you or more could join me in reading, or at least talking about it, that would be helpful, because as my age continues to advance, and I'm now in my 80th year, I do find it hard to continue on these 2-hour events all the time. And Kathy says, I would join you, but I don't like that book. So Kathy, what you're talking about Jung's Red Book for Our Time you don't like? I'm not sure. Please let me know about that, because we've been reading from it for at least close to a year now. And so, if it's not satisfying you, it must not be satisfying lots of people. So let's see. Kathy says God loves and preserves all of us with kindness. We make our own heaven or hell with how we live. God does not condemn. Humans do. Well, I concur about that, Kathy, absolutely. That oh, wonderful. There's Michelle joining me. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
You've come to save me. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thanks for the invite. I appreciate being here.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And just yesterday was so draining. And I have, even afterward, I intended to record myself just so that I would know that I had done it. And I forgot to turn on the record. And so I don't have a recording of it, and I have no memory of actually giving the eulogy. My wife tells me that I did do it well, but I can't remember a darn thing I said during the 20 minutes that I was speaking. So,
Oh, maybe it
yeah,
was one of those God things, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, it's definitely my unconscious took over and put me on the track. But oh God, and so let me see what else we've got here. Yeah, so I'm on. Do you have this book now?
I do. Which
Okay,
sentence are you on?
we are on page 9, the theme of healing, because I decided to read the introduction, and that's proven to be productive because it's given me some things
Yeah.
to talk about.
The sentence I'm on is the four essays that follow highlight the red book.
Yeah, I think I read that already. Yeah, that was
Okay.
the previous paragraph. So it's the next paragraph where we are. And let me just quickly read through the YouTube comments here. Um, so uh, Richard says Jonathan Pajot, who is an Orthodox Christian, is out to reenact the world, but I disagree with that concept. Or re-enchant the world. And yeah, Jonathan Pajot uh, is an icon carver, and he works the in the French Canadian area. I can't remember whether it's uh, Montreal or Quebec, but in any case, he's been very prolific and very successful with his icon carving, and he wants to re-enchant the world. Um, by that I mean, I guess, or he means um, rehypnotize the world, remake the human beings such that they think his icons are magic, and yeah, we don't have to do this artificially. Okay, as you see, I'm hypnotizing myself, and what I do in these sessions is I speak directly from the unconscious. After we finish each week, I have no recollection whatsoever what we've talked about. I just don't know what we've talked about. Apparently, some people around the world like what I'm saying because um, I have people like you who come back every week and
Yeah.
participate in the discussion. And I have Deborah from Australia who's listening to us at 3 o'clock in the morning, or maybe she's going to bed by now, I hope. But uh,
Well, it's interesting how it sort of like in the reenchantment, like delving into this work and letting it percolate through your mind, it does take on like a life of its own.
yes, it
I
does.
don't like I try to be like, is that just my ego? Like when I like see things around me, but it's just so coincidental. And it doesn't happen unless I'm doing spiritual hygiene on my end. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure it still happens, but I don't see it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are in effect re-enchanting ourselves all the time. And well, I mean, one time I was struggling with the first 14 verses of the book of John, especially the first verse where it says, "In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God." And I said, how is a word God? I just couldn't get that. And so it says in the beginning, I said, hasn't anything happened since the beginning to help us understand this? And um, I have a pastor friend um, who helped me understand that it's really a symbol when it says the word. It's a symbol for everything that's behind Christianity, really. And as I've um, then gone back and reread it again and again myself to the point where I've now done it in calligraphy, um, and I've given it to um, my daughter and my grandson. Uh, my grandson being a student at Hillsdale College, which is a very fundamentalist religious liberal arts college. Um, I do accept that it's a symbol. It doesn't mean literally that this word on this page is God. It means everything that's behind it.
It is a symbol, like pink elephant,
Yeah.
they tell you you see it in your mind and it's a representation.
Right, right. And so everything we do when we interact with one another is that, because words themselves, every word in any language is a symbol. And, I know from my study of Chinese that was fairly extensive. I was trained in Chinese for 1 year as my job back
Mhm.
in 1970 or 69, 70. Um, you know, Chinese, ancient Chinese wrote in pictures rather than in what we consider words. And and yet when I say the word church, uh, nobody really thinks of church. They think of a church. Right.
Right.
Whichever one happens to be handy at the moment in your unconscious pops up. And that's why reading novels is interesting, because you get a flow of things going in a novel, and then when you're reading, you actually see the movie. You and
Yeah.
it's
That
much more vivid than an actual movie if you were to make a movie of the novel. Go
it
ahead.
is. And
So you were saying
well,
Young,
that reminds me when I was learning to like read and spell, I was having so much trouble with the word island because it's is and land
right,
together.
right.
I just didn't get it.
I learned that one in the fourth grade when my teacher wanted everybody to make a report about a different country. And we had to write, create a little 4-page folder with a cover and so on. And so I was creating the map. My country was Iceland, and,
Oh,
and so I read the cover to my father, the Island of Iceland, and he said, "No, no, 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 it's not Island, it's island."
yeah. That
uh,
one threw me for such a loop.
yeah, yeah. So every word that we speak is symbolic, actually. Um, and so Jonathan Peugeot, I love the guy. I think he's very smart, and what he's doing is very useful in this overall human project of making us one species. He's making a lot of contributions to that. But I don't believe that we're going to re-enchant the world in the sense of wooey woo, abracadabra, please and thank you. We have to understand that what we're doing when we say pink elephant is we're not creating a pink elephant or any other such thing, but we create it in the mind, and that itself is magic. Um,
Hmm.
and
But I mean, there is a chapter in the Red Book about magic, and they are, as far as woo is, there's a lot of advanced, theoretical research that is very magical.
mhm. So Sheree says, my apologies, but I will have to leave early this morning. I am going with my daughter to decorate Christmas flowers I made for my family of seven and a few wildflowers from Palestine. Um, that sounds like a worthy cause. Many blessings to everyone and love this week, and I will rematch later. Okay. So
Bye, Sherry.
yeah, so Sheree, thank you for being here. And Deborah um, says it sounds like fun. Yep, probably more fun than this. Anyway, so Richard says the word is spirit, a supernatural thing. Um, I, you know, I don't think we have to make these. I don't think we have to make these distinctions. Um, in other words, a word is a symbol. I speak a word and it's symbolic of something that I mean from my unconscious. And if I type it on the paper, that makes it seem more real, more physically real. But if I type it into a computer, is it real? Is it physically real? I don't know, because it only appears in this place, and it appears by the magic of computers and software and so on. So I don't know. I think we're talking about how many angels are on the head of a pin. Um, So Richard says, not just the words in the Bible. In fact, the Gospels were not recorded till all the apostles had expired. So the word refers to the spirits of God. Okay, fair enough. And correct, the Council of Nicaea, where they agreed to the modern Bible, didn't even occur until 325 of the Christian era. And so that was clearly 325 years after the birth of Christ. And yes, he said some things that got people thinking, but it's not like he was the first one. He wasn't. He brought back ideas that had developed in India and other locales for even thousands of years. I mean, even uh, Gautama Siddhartha, the Buddha, lived 500 years before Christ. and he was figuring these things out and writing them down. And Sir Richard says it was the word that impregnated the Virgin Mary, and I would say, well, yeah, and I think I think in 2,000 years ago, 13-year-old girls didn't necessarily know where little babies were coming from. So that isn't to say that Jesus was not the Son of God. I
Yeah.
acknowledge that he was, but and
I learned about all that stuff from Bill Clinton.
yeah.
But
uh,
I was so confusing too at the time. I was like, what?
so anyway, okay. Let's read on. The theme of healing is also taken up by Jungian analyst John Merchant, who practices and teaches in Australia and lectures internationally. In his essays, he delves deeply into the healing significance of snake imagery in Jung's journey as described in the Red Book, and relates this central symbol to the work of ancient Greek and other healing practices, such as those used in the Greek temples dedicated to the god Asclepius, Asclepius.
I shouldn't be allowed to speak Greek.
Pardon, it's Greek to
So
me, I'll tell you. Jung's was a self-healing journey with significant parallels to the experiences described in the ancient texts, and the symbol of the serpent is held in common. This excursion into ancient texts is supplemented by John Hall's reflections on the connections between the Red Book and Gnosticism. This essay, too, emphasizes the self-healing effects experienced by Jung as the result of his inner journey, and suggests that the same can be awaited by postmodern people who have the courage to follow this path. The way of individuation, as practiced by Jung in the Red Book, leads to a new myth to live by, a myth we urgently need today. This point is also strongly argued by Henning Weierstrass, who gathers many inspiring passages from Jung's later works to support the contention that the method of active imagination is the way to pursue individuation in its later stages of spiritual development. Um, Now, I interviewed John Beebe on one occasion. He's a very famous Jungian analyst on the West Coast, lives in San Francisco, I believe. And I was commenting to him about the fact that I had been unable to find a Jungian analyst who would work with me and who would work properly with me. And he said, well, Skip, Carl Jung is your analyst. and and he's quite right. I mean, because I have put Jung's words through my psyche sort of constantly for over 35 years, um, those words have in effect been my shrink. And, I had one analyst say to me, Skip, I'd be afraid of you. Okay.
that's very honest.
Yeah. But I mean, and I do understand in a certain way that when you put your psyche at the um, beck and call of a client, of a patient, you don't have any idea what they're going to put into your psyche. And, as I think about it and think about the practice of psychoanalysis, while I admire people who can do that and keep their own psychic integrity, but I can't imagine anything worse than having to be in six or seven other people's minds every day, every work day. In other words, you have clients
Yeah.
come to the office or you deal with them online and they get their hour, and you as an analyst have to be in that space where they are, and and I would think that's crazy making. Wouldn't you think so? uh,
It would be crazy making if you couldn't tell where
where the
their
boundaries are.
influence
Yeah.
was and where it was solidly yours.
Yeah. I think I would tend to get too deeply into it, and um, I'm easily suggestible, as we know from my self hypnosis here. Okay, do you want to read the next
Sure.
paragraph about Becca Darnus?
Sure. What?
The
Okay.
theme of imagination.
All right. The theme of imagination and its centrality in the individuation process is examined by Jungian scholar Becca Tarnas, who elucidates the features of what she calls participatory imagination. This method for engaging actively with the inner world offers a key for resolving some of the existential angst resident in postmodern consciousness. It is a type of imagination that is not unfamiliar to novelist and poet Dale Kushner, who shares her deep appreciation as well for Jung's use of language as he struggles to free himself from the spirit of his times. This is the agon of the poet and the creative writer, as Kushner recognizes so well from her own struggles to break through linguistic habits and conventions into what Rainer Maria Rilke
Rilke.
would call the open. This type of linguistic work is essential if the myth brought forth is to be new and fresh. Jung would speak of new bottles for new wine.
Yeah.
You want me
Um,
to keep going?
yeah, go
All
ahead.
right. Jung was most certainly a gifted writer, as his Red Book testifies, but was he also a mystic? Karen Ronet, Jungian psychoanalyst and scholar of Sufism, finds important parallels in Liber Nobis to the themes in the works of numerous Sufi mystics. While the Septim Sermons ad Mortos,
The Seven Sermons of the Dead.
oh, which were embedded in scrutinies, the third section of the Red Book, are generally considered to be Gnostic in tone and content. Gironet adds another fascinating dimension in linking the message of the sermons to Sufi visionary experiences. This would argue for their archetypal nature, since Jung was not a student of Sufism at that point in his life. The star is a symbol that finds its way into the human imagination, inevitably when mystics penetrate into higher realms of being. As a point of contrast to Jung's experience and account, theologian and psychologist Katie Givens Kim introduces William James and discusses his defensive distancing from mystical experience, even as he describes it in his famous works as the varieties of religious experience. Kim's essay is a significant contribution to comparative studies that link Jung's work to those of other thinkers of his time and shows how unique Jung was in being both a scholar of the psychology of religion and himself a homo religiosus.
Yeah. I think I think mysticism is kind of overemphasized. I mean, I think lots of people want a magical God, a God who is sitting there on your shoulder thinking good thoughts about you and is going to protect you from all manner of things. Okay. And um and that God is what's the term? Divinus absconditus. It has absconded. There is no being like that. I think ancient people had the impression and were persuaded into their religions to believe that people were magical and that somehow something wonderful could happen, woo, wee, woo, with good music and so on. And and but I've read The Varieties of Religious Experience. I've read William James's book, and basically what he's talking about is numinous experiences. And, you can attribute wooey woo to them if you want to, but or, I mean, I'll give you an
It's
example that has to do with this eulogy that I just gave. Now, for years, because we moved and my workspace is now a disaster area, which is why I have to use the backing and such, uh, I have not been able to find the Bible that I bought about 30 years ago. I had a Bible that I've been using for many, many years, but um, in like the first week of November of this year, I finally decided, well, look, Jung is always talking about these biblical passages. I really ought to have a Bible handy. So I think I'll buy myself one. So I bought this Bible, and on the Saturday of that week, um, this friend of mine's wife calls up and says that he's died, and would I do his eulogy cum sermon? And so I said, well, let me think about it for an hour and I'll get back to you. And around the time of that hour of thinking, this Bible arrives. Okay, now, this guy who was born in 1940 in Aarhus, Denmark. That's where he was born. And so I opened the Bible and I happened to be drawn to the maps in the back of the Bible. So I opened the first page of the maps of the Bible, but on the facing page of the maps was a little blurb about the origin of the typeface that that was made to produce the Bible. The Bible is in a certain typeface, and it was developed in Aarhus, Denmark.
oh,
And that's that. And so there's three things. I was it was after or about the time that my friend was dying. He died on October 25th. So on October 25th, he died. And a week passed before his wife called me because they obviously were trying to deal with what should we do about a remembrance, right? And so about the time that my friend was dying is when I finally pulled the trigger on buying a new Bible. Okay. She calls and boom, right there is the Bible. It appears in my hand. I mean, it literally came from, you know, UPS. That that moment when she had called me. And then I opened the Bible, and here the typeface of this Bible was created in Aarhus, Denmark, which is the city in which the family lived all their lives, and in which the two sons of this woman and her husband, my friend, lived. They lived in that city for 5 years, and their two sons were born there. And I didn't, I mean, I remember my friend telling me he was from Aarhus, and but it didn't really register because I couldn't even picture how to spell the name of the city. And when it's spelled out, it's Aarhus, but it's pronounced Aarhus, Aarhus.
It's
Uh,
amazing that your subconscious does record everything. Like you don't think it is, but
yeah,
it
it does.
is.
Yeah.
And in the rooms, like I know exactly what you're talking about, and it is a numinous experience. Like
Yeah.
there's this saying like God is closer to you than your own breath.
Hmm.
And there are times like in my when early recovery, I would be like, that is such a BS. What the hell? I'd be out there smoking my cigarette,
Yeah.
wasting time with the others, waiting for, everything to be over inside the room. Um, but gradually, it did percolate through my mind, and they have those moments do come, and is it odd or is it God?
Yeah. Well,
And
and
yeah.
so I can, there are many reasons why I bought the Bible. Because I it wasn't because I had this friend and that at that moment he died. But I mean, those are the types of religious experiences that William James talks about. And so, yeah, you can attribute something mystic to it if you want to. Uh, and you can go down that rabbit hole and be perfectly happy in your unconscious. Okay. And I say, yes, those are incredible synchronicities and they're important. And and I told this story yesterday, and my friend's niece from Denmark came over to me afterward, and she insisted on seeing the Bible. She wanted to see what I was talking about.
Hmm.
And so anyway, um, so there are, so I could hold myself out as a mystic if I wanted to. I mean, I have synchronicities happening to me all the time, but it's, I mean, every day I have a synchronicity of some sort. And so if wanted to, I mean, if I was living 500 years ago, it wouldn't be hard to make myself into a mystic. Um, and uh, but but I don't see it that way because there's so many different things happening. And yeah, it was an interesting coincidence that I opened to that page of that Bible because I haven't opened very many pages in the Bible yet. at all. And yet I opened that page and there was the name of his town. So I go, whoa, okay.
Right.
All
Is it
right.
odd or is it God? I guess it depends on the person.
Yeah, well, I mean, I say it's a synchronicity, and I can't, and that's the type of thing that William James spoke of in his varieties of religious experience. It is the types of things. And okay, I can probably write a book as long as William James's book with synchronicities that have happened to me over my lifetime. Um, but um, I can't claim any connection to anything woo woo, or here's a magic wand and this happened, right?
My dad, my dad, who's like he's like super Catholic, and he has like a very Catholic imagination. So when things like that happen, like he misplaces something and finds it again, like he he swears he has a ghost. And sometimes the ghost is nice to him, and sometimes the ghost plays tricks on him.
Yeah.
But he says it's his ghost.
Okay, so going over to the YouTube comments for a bit. So Richard is having a soliloquy of his own. He says, not just the words in the Bible. In fact, the Gospels were not recorded. Yeah, okay. So then uh, it was the word that impregnated Virgin Mary. Yeah. uh, I have to catch the live stream later. Um, Says Deborah, yes, you need to get to sleep. It's 4 in the morning. And Richard says, Mary knew where babies came from. That's why she said, how can this be possible, seeing as I know not yet a man? Well, you know, says who? This was written in the Bible 325 years after Christ. Says who? What did she say? She said that. I mean, obviously, the people who were writing the Bible wanted to create that impression, but I, um, I'm doubtful about the quote. And Jung's only ties to me because his experience and mine are relatable. Okay, I agree with that. Absolutely. What Jung was concerned with was living with spirits in his life while keeping his sanity. He had no concern for his soul, which is eternal. Mysticism is the truth laid bare. I have unbelievable synchronicities every day and still see spirits constantly. Yeah, I mean,
It's so
eh,
funny to me when my dad talks about his ghost. It's
yeah,
like he knows his ghost.
yeah. Well, I mean, remember A Beautiful Mind, the movie, the novel, or not the story and uh, movie about an actual Princeton professor who saw beings and um, who who could see mathematical answers in his head. Well, last week, speaking of that, um, I was at a training for the math teachers in our county. I'm not a math teacher, but I as a special educator, I have to go to 3 math classes a day, and so they have been kind and put me into the training as well, so I could see what the teachers are learning. And um, I mentioned to this one teacher. that, my problem is I can just see the answer. I don't know how I get there. But and since I started studying long division when I was in the fourth grade, I remember when it happened because I remember what school I was at, and I know how old I was when I was in that school. The teacher started to teach long division, and I never had to calculate the long division. I could just see the answer. I could see it.
She
And
must have explained it really good.
well, yeah, I mean, she was a terrific teacher. She was teaching three grades simultaneously in the same classroom. Okay, this was this
Oh,
little country school in Papua, Michigan, and this elder lady, I mean, she seemed old to me at the time, but she was probably 50-ish. Um, what she was brilliant. She and her name was Mrs. Stahl. I still remember her name, and she could teach all three grades simultaneously. And what
oh,
was happening to me, because I started there in the fourth grade, is, well, not only did I get my own lessons, I also got the sixth grade lessons.
oh, that happened to me with my younger sister.
Uh-huh.
Like she's younger than me, so she used to watch me
Mm-hmm.
struggle with my classes. And
Mm-hmm.
then when she got to it, she was the genius.
Yeah.
She was the smart one.
Yeah. So anyway, this teacher says to me, "Oh, well, you have a beautiful mind." And I had never thought of myself as anything like um, John Nash. I think his name is John Nash, who was the actual person that this happened to, who won the Nobel Prize for mathematics. Um, but I don't think I'm psychotic as he is, right? I, I know that I can intuitively understand a mathematics problem, and it's partially because Mrs. Stahl taught it in a way that I can intuitively get it. Um, but okay, well, let's finish this. I'll read one paragraph and then I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Astonishingly, as Christian Gayar, Jung psychoanalyst and emeritus professor of psychoanalysis and art at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, finds in his delightful essay on Jung's Red Book in Venice, uh, Jung was also an artist, not a professional one to be sure, but an amateur having considerable artistic ability and sensibility. Gayard takes the reader on a tour of the Venice Biennial, which took place nearly a century after the creation of the Red Book, and gives us a glimpse at this world of avant-garde art through the eyes of brilliant observer Kylie Laughlin. Period. Kylie Laughlin's essay picks up also on the pictorial features of the Red Book and compares them respectfully and thoughtfully to the modern tradition of rendering archetypal figures and narratives to come uh, uh, in come in comic book form. Laughlin does this quite free of tongue-in-cheek signals to the reader and creates thereby a delightful partnership with Gayard's placement of the Red Book within the contemporary art scene. And of course, I concur with that. So are you still there, Michelle?
Oh, yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, go ahead and read on.
All right. The volume concludes with an essay by Jungian psychoanalyst Mark Winborn, who situates the Red Book by way of contrast with the previous several essays In the tradition of modern psychoanalytic thinking, Winborn notes, as have many others, the numerous ways in which Jung anticipated later developments in psychoanalytic theory and practice. And he adds to this accumulated body of evidence the significance of several key passages and techniques found in the Red Book to argue that Jung's existential confrontation with the unconscious provided the seedbed for much of his later theoretical writing. Speaking as editors, we wish to state that it has been an enormous pleasure and privilege to work with the 70 authors who have contributed to this project up until now. We can summarize our experience by saying truthfully that we have gained immensely in our appreciation of Jung's oeuvre at every level, what it meant for him personally, what it meant for his times as a response from the spirit of the depths to the spirit of his times, and what it means as a new addition to the aurea cantina of literature for all of humanity. We see Jung as the birth giver to the new age and Liber Novus as the source book for a grand narrative that can serve the spiritual needs of human beings in the generations to come. Jung saw himself as standing at the age of Pisces and in the transition to the age of Aquarius. Through his suffering, which was the price of giving birth to a new consciousness, he became the new man. The Red Book is an account of his journeys and his discoveries, and it can be a guide for modernity to find its way to a new myth for our time.
Yeah. So, as most of you know, Jung's art, while abstract in many cases, his mandalas and that sort of thing, um, also has a lot of imagery in it that, is sort of semi-medieval uh, images. And for example, there's the one image of him standing at a brain, and he's got a scimitar and he's about to cut the brain in half. But it so happens that I was looking at some work by Kandinsky this morning, which was all his idea of abstract at the time. And his their they were onto something, Jung and Kandinsky and all these guys that were working in the early 20th century on what was called modern art. Um, were onto something, working from the unconscious, being persuaded by things in the unconscious. But we have to take this further. And so I'm just going to show um, my latest piece, which is, I mean, I'm literally doing this every day. And this is my latest abstract piece. And it's based on having taken um, tea bags, wet tea bags, and putting it on a white piece of paper and letting them uh, spread out across my paper as they wished randomly, and then painting that in. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to listen to my unconscious on what do I do with this work now? Okay, what should I do? And Kandinsky talked about that, but um, Kandinsky stopped because he had to have physical things in his artwork, that, they were abstract, assuredly, but he actually had pictures of things. Now, I'm not intentionally putting any pictures in my artwork. Acknowledge that they do have faces and animals and various things that people see out of my artwork, but what they're seeing, in my view, is their unconscious. Okay, it's like mirror, mirror on the wall. Um, the old witch was Snow White. Um, the old witch was actually seeing what she already knew in her unconscious. She was looking at her image in the mirror, but what she was seeing was the fact that, you know, damn that Snow White, she's prettier than I am. Or damn that Snow White, she's still young and I'm old now, type thing. That's what she was seeing, in that story. You're muted, Michelle, so I cannot see you.
I was saying, all I could see is the movie images when you say mirror, mirror on the wall, like I just see that
Yeah.
the movie.
Right. But now I'm calling these images that I'm doing my mirrors. I'm creating mirrors for people because, um, they are not seeing what I see. I'm seeing something uh unique, but it's only for me, okay, because it's from my unconscious. But when they see the image, when you see this image, um, let's see, I'll get that again. What happened? Okay, let me try this again. Is that on your screen now again?
No.
Okay, just a minute. There, now you've got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you see this image, you, there's no way that you can know what I'm thinking of as I'm painting this. Okay, there's no way. Um, and because obviously I operate on a human mind that has so many facets that you would not connect to, but you have your own. And so when you look at this, it it fires ideas out of your unconscious. So it's the same idea as mirror, mirror on the wall. In other words, you're seeing what your unconscious wants to see. I mean, this is not a finished piece yet. What you're seeing here is not finished, um, but it's probably 75% finished. But I can see any number of faces in this, for example, even now in this state, I can see it. But you may not see those things, um, and that's fine. I'm not trying to get you to see what I see. I'm trying to get you to see what you see from this, uh, and that's the point. And so I think that's what they're driving at here in this essay. I suspect so, anyway.
I think it's interesting they mentioned the age of Pisces and the transition to the age of Aquarius because Pluto did enter the house of Aquarius. Pluto is the ruler of death and transformation.
Mhm.
And we're definitely going through an age of transformation. Um,
Yeah.
so,
So you read right to the end of this, right? To
yes.
Okay. So what he's saying, through his suffering, which was the price of giving birth to a new consciousness, he became the new man. Okay, well, okay, fine. Um, whether he became the new man or not, I don't know. I don't vouch for whether I would like Carl Jung if I physically knew him. Okay, I don't vouch for that because apparently he was kind of coarse in his way of being in the world, and he ate food very sloppily and so on, and so I might not have liked him in person, but what I do like is what he opens up in everybody's mind. And if you follow along on what I've been driving at for the last 10 years on this YouTube channel, it's about that. It's about what he's opened up for all of us in terms of our psyches. Um,
He has, but I have heard like some Jungian psychologists have made like when they talk about Jung, like they've made it sound like he's Jesus
well,
to
I know
them.
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I think that too. Okay, in a sense, right? Uh, but I don't know if I would have liked Jesus, if I physically knew him. I can't say that I would, and I'm sure I wouldn't have liked the Buddha because he sat and meditated until his bone showed through, and you could reach through his stomach to and grab his backbone. I mean, he was, and I wouldn't have enjoyed doing that at all. You mean I gotta sit here until I shrink away to nothing? Um, and so I can't say that I would have liked these guys in their lifetimes. And they faced a different world from the world we face today. But what they did was find out things that maybe were not. I mean, they opened up ideas, and keep in mind that alchemy itself had been shut down in the university for 300 years when Jung says, wait a minute, there is something here. And his point was that you were searching for gold, but it wasn't a you, the what is it, the elemental
The
number.
alchemical gold.
The,
Yeah.
he was they were looking for alchemical gold. And in the process, and the Chinese, long before Western Europeans were at it, they invented gunpowder. And so Chinese alchemists were doing stuff long before Western Europeans were, but they
Yeah.
they
Do you
invented,
have you ever read the I Ching?
of course, sure.
Oh yeah, I love that book. The it's so interesting because I've tested the stick method, using the
Mm,
sticks and then the coins, and it is crazy how the math works. Like it works exactly the same,
right.
and I've tested it because I'm like, this can't be right, but it works. It's so strange.
It does work. And we don't know why it works, but it does work. There's no doubt about that. And there's no doubt that tarot cards work. Okay, they wouldn't have been around for 500 years if they didn't work, you know. And people who poo-poo that haven't understood what we're talking about here, right? And so uh
Yeah. It is a door and you just need a crack. You just need to crack the door
yeah,
open and
you
enough to let it
let it play
to keep
through,
open. Yeah.
right? So it being quarter to 12, I guess we can't really start on this essay, which I intended to start on today, but um, I will change the title of this. But the whole point is that all this writing gives us the opportunity to discuss things that we would not otherwise think of discussing. Um, and it challenges, um, lets us challenge other people's points of view. I mean, uh, let's see, right now we have, I guess, 5 people still watching. Um, and but during the week we may have a couple of hundred people do watch. I mean, I get 200 or 300 a week um, watching, and God knows how many people will watch over the next decade or century, or however long YouTube continues to
It's been
exist.
on for like 20 years already.
Yeah, I and I don't think they have a system for taking things off, right? Because now keeping everything electronically is very cheap. You can keep everything and so on. And so my expectation is long after you and I are uh, images for our children.
Your children's children.
Yeah, your children's children are thinking about us, but
No,
we won't.
yours, because I
Oh,
like
okay.
dogs.
Okay. Um, but long after we're gone, this will still be listened to, and we get quite a lot of minutes of YouTube time that are uh, logged each week on this YouTube channel. So I expect the YouTube channel to be running long after I'm gone. Um, and so what am I saying? I think it's worthwhile to have these conversations. I do think so. And you obviously think so. And Richard, although Richard and I have sometimes crossed swords about certain things, I don't deny what Richard is saying. I'm just saying, well, that's a way of looking at it. And um, so anyway,
Jung does have a book on alchemy. It's pretty
yes,
cool.
right.
Um, it talks about the Trinity a
Yep.
lot, like the first half,
Mhm.
which is really cool.
Well, and Christ knew, okay, he did know because he said that I have to go, his followers didn't want him to go to the cross. They wanted him to stick with them and not accept his execution, to escape somehow. And he walked directly into something that he knew he was gonna be executed for. He knew that. And his followers were asking him not to go to the cross, to and in effect to escape. And and his point was, there's no escape. We're all going to die. And um, and he had to make his point. And look what happened. He made his point, and we're still talking about him over 2,000 years later. Um, and so, I think so. But anyway, Christ had the point that he had to leave so that the Paraclete would come. Now, the Paraclete is a term that's used someplace. I'm not sure exactly where, but Jung uses the term, and it means the Holy Ghost would come. That people would, after he was gone, they would actually feel his presence, as Richard obviously does. And I can't say that I feel Christ's presence with me, but I certainly feel that the Holy Ghost exists. I do think that. And,
I
and
find Jesus very relatable. Like the story where he gets angry and throws things around in the
yeah,
temple. That's
yeah,
my
sure.
favorite version of him.
Yeah. Well, he did, and I've done that too.
Yeah.
Um,
And in the letter that Pontius Pilate sent to Caesar, he basically said that like Jesus was talking smack till the end, like to everyone. So I think about that all the time.
yeah, I
Because that's
guess.
so different from, the image that I thought growing up, where like he was perfect, he was arguing with priests at 5. And then in this letter, it's like he he made everyone mad. He
Yeah,
called them names.
yeah. So that reminds me, I wanted to share. I had given to my friend's family uh, some pieces that I had done in calligraphy, and I'm gonna share these. Now, I did not quote these things verbatim. Let's see, is somebody arriving here? Yes, perhaps. Oh, Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Um, I'm going to share these pieces that I gave prints of these to my uh, to the people I was doing. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to share. Sorry. Um, I gave prints of these to uh, the wife of my friend who died, and um, I I used excerpts of these, but I didn't use them in entirety. But I did use excerpts of them. So I wanted to share the ones that I put them in a binder. I bought these um, picture binders that I could share these prints in. They're sleeves, they're plastic sleeves, and I bought the 11 by 14 size, and then I just slipped these prints into the sleeves, and I gave a copy of each to the wife and the son who I did the eulogy for. So I'm going to share these pieces. I mean, this is not brilliant calligraphy, and I acknowledge that, but this was just a little touch. If you're ever called upon to do a eulogy, it's a little touch I added to make it more meaningful. So this is man's relation to God probably has to undergo a certain important change. Instead of the perpetuating praise to an unpredictable king or a child's prayer to a loving Father, the responsible living and fulfilling of the divine will in us will be our form of worship of and commerce with God. I changed the word commerce to interaction with God. And his goodness means grace and light, and his dark side, the terrible temptation of power. And I stopped with that. I didn't add this last piece where it says man can destroy the world. That was what Jung said, but I didn't do that. Hi, Kathy. Nice to see you. Let's see. There's a couple more of these things that I gave. Just I didn't add this one, but I probably will at some point in the future if I'm called upon to give such things. This is Jung's letter to David Cox, who was a pastor. I hope this comes up right here. Let's just see. Yeah. It is in reality modern man's perplexity expressed in symbolic terms. It can be expressed in a more scientific psychological language. For instance, instead of using the term God, you say unconscious. Instead of Christ, self. Instead of incarnation, integration of the unconscious. Instead of salvation or redemption, individuation. Instead of crucifixion or sacrifice on the cross, realization of the four functions or of wholeness, meaning that the cross represents, left and right in the physical world and the divine and the profane in the vertical sides. And I now have figured out how to get the lines out of it. So probably we'll do that at some point. Let's see what else I've got here. Yeah, I've done John 1.
Well, Skip, I have to go because my dog is
by all means
is decided that he's had enough of this.
Yeah.
And that I have to take him outside now. So bye everyone.
Yeah, bye everyone. And I guess I can't find the other one right now that I wanted to include. So Kathy, you arrived.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to thank Michelle for coming in before she left, but
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't want to break in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice of her to show up for you.
She saved me because I was again having a hypnosis problem.
Well, she's good. Yeah, she's good.
Yeah.
She's a good presence.
Yeah. So Richard says Catholicism is a magical way of worshiping God, and so many canonized saints experienced the mysteries that Jung did. And I would agree with that, Richard. And, that's fine. That's the Catholic way. And I don't criticize anybody's way of finding their way to God. And I mean, at least I hope I'm not criticizing when I'm sparring with you.
I don't think you are. I mean, as an outsider, I don't see it that way when you and Richard are conversing. I don't know if he feels that way. I don't think he'd come back all the time.
Yeah, he's been a regular here, so
Yeah.
I think he understands that I have a perspective and he has a perspective. And so I would encourage anyone who wants to find God in a mystical way to do that through Catholicism, that's fine. I don't object to that today. I mean, keeping in mind that I'm descended from the Protestants, that the Spanish Catholics kept coming up to Holland to whip up on every year for the 80 Years' War, to beat us back into Catholicism. And the hard-headed Dutchmen of Holland, simply every time the Spanish came, they'd flood their country and send them back to sunny Spain.
I had a religious epiphany this morning in terms of my past and, where I find myself now as a 62, almost 63-year-old woman.
Mhm.
My mother was raised Orthodox Jew, and it was really shoved down her throat to the point where she felt it necessary to leave home at 15 and get married.
Oh,
And, that would have been in, 1950 that she turned 15.
mhm.
But one of the things that my brain just kind of, however factually or not, tied together for myself this morning is that my whole life, and I don't mean this in any kind of a pious, egotistical, hierarchical, or any kind of way like
Mhm.
that. I'm just stating my personal, factual, sharing a very personal fact with you,
Mhm.
is that I have always felt directly tapped into my communication with God. I have never felt the need for an intermediary, however you would pronounce that. I don't need a go between.
You don't need an intercession by any
I don't need any of
religious
that.
person. Yeah.
I have always heard God's voice speak directly to me when he wants to convey something to me. And I have always felt like I could directly have a conversation with what I perceive as God. And I think it's really lovely that we can gather and be different. And I think it's really important that we're careful not to proselytize to each other or to judge each
Yeah.
other or try to change one another here. We're all really, we're all grown adults. And I
Right.
think that I like the way we can banter. I like it that I can come here and say, I don't like the book you're reading, and you don't tell me to go away and read someone else's story, that you just like are, accepting of that fact, and that's welcoming to me.
Mhm.
Um I think it's refreshing that I can be honest and that I don't have to like play along and pretend. I want to thank you for that inclusiveness. I appreciate it very much. Um,
Yeah.
it's safety that is, I think, that we can create
Well,
for each other regardless of where we go or where we are.
I
Whether you're in a coffee shop ordering coffee or, talking to a relative on the phone that you don't see eye to eye with, whatever it
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
We
I-
need permission to be able to show up and be ourselves. And I just want to thank you for that.
Amen. And for all of the time of humanity, we've been like this with one another. And I just think we need to be like this and then get it
Wow.
closer together.
What you just did right there with your hands,
Yeah.
I saw a piece cross my feed yesterday that in some neonatal environments or in some life threat, not neonatal, probably actually, I think it was an adult that had to be isolated. They are blowing up plastic gloves with warm water, and then they tie the ends of the gloves together and they put the hand of the inflicted person who's unconscious in between those warm water
Mhm.
filled gloves for soothing and comforting, that that is supposed to closely mimic the someone holding your hand when no one can hold their hand.
Mhm.
And that's how important it is that we come together finger to finger intertwining like you showed,
Yeah.
rather
Like,
than back of the hand to back of the hand, yeah, where we can't hug each other's hands and clasp one another in solidarity. That's really cool.
yeah. Well, I mean, this is what was going on during the 80 Years' War. The Catholics were
Mm.
beating up on the Protestants
Yep.
constantly.
Yeah, good old
And
Bloody Mary.
yeah, and you see um, the irony is I have a King James version of the Bible, and so does Tim Holmes, and yet the King James version um, is a Catholic, the the son of Mary Queen of Scots,
Yeah, King James.
King James, and he was a Catholic.
It's literal.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I was a little shocked that you bought that version, but when I heard that last week, but I
well, I
wasn't going
bought
to say
another
anything.
version too, but I don't
Okay.
even remember what the other version was. And
It's probably called an NIV.
yeah, maybe. Anyway, I bought another version. There's an infinite number of Bible versions you can buy.
Sure.
And I have not enough money, but the other one came, and I said to Debbie, just give me this for Christmas. I'm not going to open it now. So I haven't opened it as yet. So I don't even remember what version it was, but
It's
um,
okay. It's not like you're going to get through the whole book today.
yeah, but I mean, ultimately that's the task. This is the myth. This is the myth that I'll proselytize, that the human species has to change from this to this, or to this, and then gradually to this. That's that's our task over the next several thousand years. Probably it'll take that long, I suppose. But the idea is that um, it's very clear, as Jane Goodall points out, that we're almost the same as a species, and we're almost the same as chimpanzees. We're only uh, less than 1% different in our DNA from chimpanzees. And so, uh, so we have to wake up and accept that fact. And so we've been worrying, all right, when humans were in the Garden of Eden, at that time, that was Africa, probably Central Africa. And, there was just everything we needed was just right there, and we could just take it. Um, and and if things got crowded, we could just move on and move on and move on until we populated the entire world. And then when that was accomplished, then it started to get crowded, and then people had to fight for boundaries and so on. And now we have to evolve even further to the point where those boundaries go away. And
It's always been really, really clear to me. I remember one time being on a walk as a child, and I was with a friend. We were, just two kids out and about exploring as kids did, hopefully still do. And we were like in a field kind of an environment, and we crossed this place where there was like a fence and it had a no trespassing sign on it. We didn't cross the fence, but
mm,
we came across a fence with a no trespassing sign on it, and
sure.
I had a cow.
Hmm.
I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and I went off. I explained to I diatribed. I went on and on to my friend how there's no such thing as boundaries. These are man-made barriers. This is
Right.
totally nonsense. This is God's planet. Who are we to think that we have the right to put signs on God's planet, telling each other where we can go and where we can't go? I mean, I was completely blown away, all on my own little,
Interesting.
universe
Interesting.
kind of
Interesting.
prompting. I was not raised religious. I was not raised to believe anything, but that left the world vastly open to me in my
Hmm.
imagination and experiences.
Hmm. Very
And that was
interesting.
because of, what my mom experienced of having religion shoved down her throat. She wasn't about it. In fact,
Hmm.
when I started to explore, she told me, go ahead, just don't bring that home.
Yeah.
She's like, you can talk to me, but don't,
Yeah.
we're not doing that in this house.
Hmm.
And so I was like, wow, okay, well, I'm free to explore, and she's not attached. to what I believe, and that gave me a wide open field. Yeah, the thing about boundaries and possessiveness, all of us being territorial, uh, all of the colonization that has gone on throughout history, mankind's history.
Yeah,
We've always been colonizers. We've always booted something out of our way, with some
sure.
semblance of force rather than sharing. Yeah. When are we going to learn to share?
Yeah.
How?
And
What's the
and
solution?
well, and that's what Hillman talks about in this book, Terrible Love of War, that I'm now reading, and which I gave everybody a taste of last week. Um, he posits the idea that, you know, we're always in a state of war. And in a sense, I understand what he means, in the sense that everything has evolved. Not only the human species, but every species has evolved, and it's picked the things that work well, and it's sloughed off the things that didn't work well in every species, and in every, plant and animal there is. They all did that, and we're still doing it. And so now we have to have a different perspective about it. Okay, maybe we needed the 80 years war at the time that it was on to figure out that, hey, really wasn't right when the Pope, um, you know, locked up Galileo for the last 4 years of his life. But on the other hand, Galileo just found a different way to fight by inventing two new sciences in those last 4 years, one of which is quantum mechanics, which we're still trying to figure out. But it was Galileo who first laid down the principles of quantum mechanics, several hundred years ago. And so, we're still trying to understand what he was talking about, and so on. Um, and and so, in a sense, all development is a kind of struggle, okay, in some sense. And we all war. I mean, I just happened to this week listen to the opening to the movie Patton, where George C. Scott uh, recites sort of a pastiche of some of the things that Patton said to troops when he was in charge of the Third Army. And one of the things is that, um, we love to have war, we love to fight, and you know, and the species, in my school, I have, kids coming on who are teenagers, and they're fighting all the time. And so it's a constant, um, it's a constant process of educating the young that they don't have to fight all the time. And we have to get to the point where we can get people old enough with enough wisdom to educate children so that they don't feel they have to fight.
I believe they're seeking the skills for conflict resolution when they do that.
Oh, sure.
And that, if we can maybe not be too afraid of, their fire, but also ask them to quell long enough to look at it from another angle of, what is your anger looking to resolve? What
Yeah,
do you want a solution to? How can you, through this
yeah,
discord, achieve a solution? And sometimes having an argument mean learning to not win or to lose, and also that compromise maybe means both people walk away a little bit unhappy and that that's okay,
Yeah.
or what is the context and what are you needing right now? Are you just letting off steam
Yeah.
and feeling aggravation as a residual of something else, or is this moment really about this moment with this person you're having conflict with? What's going on here? For
Yeah.
real, what's going on here? Do you need to figure out how to deal with bad guys in your life because you have bad guys in your life and you can't deal with them?
Yeah.
I mean, that's real for kids.
Oh,
Kids
yeah.
get beat up emotionally and psychologically all the time. I had a stepdad for 9.5 years
Hmm.
that finally was able to get my mother to shed him, not get her to, but I guess she came to her own conclusions. But after that period, I remember one time having a discussion about Jim with my mom and saying, yeah, he used to beat me all the time, blah, blah, blah. She's like, wait, what? Jim didn't beat you. And I'm like, oh yeah, he hit me all the time. And we had a talk for like 90 minutes
Hmm.
before I realized that she was right, that it was his words that I thought were beating me,
Hmm.
that he was so verbally abusive
Yeah.
that I grew up feeling like I had been hit for
Yeah.
9 years.
Oh, I'm
Not all
sure.
the time, but I was like, wow, this guy hit me and you let him and you just stood there and let him. And she's like, whoa, that's that's where we have disparaging memories here. And that was a
Mm.
real eye opener in terms of like how kids view conflict, what it
Yeah.
does to their bodies and
Sure.
minds, and what they might be thinking about conflict. Uh, I grew up super argumentative as well, but I'm an Aries. Yeah,
So that's
my
your
rising
excuse.
sign is
That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to that my story, right?
yeah, hello, God of War. Uh,
Yeah.
it's but I've learned temperance
Yeah.
and I've learned
Well,
love.
and temperance is what we have to learn
Mhm.
in
Yeah, it's
the
about
end.
temperance and self-control.
Yeah.
Also realizing we're all walking wounded.
Yeah, sure. And that's, yeah, absolutely true. So there's this continuum of how we have to get along with one another. I mean, adults, we have to get to the point where we can understand how to get along with one another on a global basis. And then we can bring that down to the children who are still
Yeah.
these rapacious animals.
Oh, Richard and I share a birthday. Whoa.
Uh,
Okay.
March
How
24th. Huh?
about that? Hey, brother.
How about that?
Whoa, that gave me tingles.
Yeah,
Cool. Yeah, and one thing that you just said that I think is important to highlight is it is on us to teach those who come after us. It is not up to them to correct us. And that is one of the things that in our society we have conflict with right now.
mhm,
Children know we have taken a huge wrong turn. And I think anybody under 40 is a kid to me right now. So, pardon
yeah,
my use
sure.
of the, I mean,
Yeah,
children are minors, but,
yeah,
and they know too.
yeah,
So as the generation gaps will always be present, I do believe it's our job as elders to be the ones that heal ourselves, and that healing is through osmosis,
yeah,
actually pretty magical. Take for instance what you do in your school skit.
sure.
It's there is magic that you have created there,
Yeah,
energetic shifts that you have put in motion through just your presence and the way you
yeah,
conduct yourself and the things you share. And some of it you will always know about, and some things you will never know about.
yeah. But
And you can just trust.
I do know that I teach at least two lessons. I'm sure there are many more, as you
Mhm.
say, but I teach two lessons just by walking in the door in the morning, right? I
Yeah, showing up.
Yeah, and showing up, and that here's a crippled old man who can walk in the door and cut the mustard and be respected by my colleagues.
Amen, Skip. And I'm very proud of you for hanging in there, because I know that you've been put through the traces from both ends of that candle. The kids have given you a
Yeah.
run, and so has the bureaucracy. So good
Yeah.
for you. Good for
Well,
you, Skip.
and my fellow faculty members are highly to be commended. I mean, we have a totally empathetic faculty,
That's neat.
and they wouldn't stay if they weren't. Um,
But like
and
they've made you take tests that has, they've put you under observations that have stressed you out, and you have just like, acknowledged and carried on.
yeah, I have to, because
Mhm.
you
It's
know
worth it.
and but many of our faculty members are Black, and and about 95% of our kids are Black, and it's very important for them to see that an old white man can get along with mostly Black women, and Black men as well, because I do have several um, Black colleagues who
Mhm.
I love, and who are not only in the administration but also in the teacher corps.
That's
And
cool. Yeah,
and
because let's face it, you're an old white man. Your species is getting a real bad rap these days,
I
kiddo.
know, yeah, especially my generation right now.
Yep.
Um,
You're more of a thumbsticker outer than us old white ladies right now. So yeah, thanks for taking the heat, brother.
Okay.
I'm
So
gonna sign off. Thanks for
yeah,
being here.
peace. Take care. So Richard, I see you're talking about your synchronicity at 11:36 p.m. on Friday, on Good Friday in 1967. Uh, yeah. So we have a lot to teach one another, and to learn from one another. And you know, I don't know, I think there's this hymn that is sung by many people that says, let it begin with me. And so I resonate with that hymn, and let it begin with all of us, all of us within the sound of my voice. Um, let us all see if we can make this change from this to this, and gradually to this, and then let us teach our children to do that. If we can do that, then the species might be saved, and our planet might be saved before we destroy it entirely. Okay, so having said on all that, I'm sorry about the misrepresentation of what we were going to talk about today. We will take up Robert Mercurio's first essay in this volume next week. And today we worked with the introduction to Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions, Volume 4, edited by Murray Stein and Thomas Arsh. So I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you for being here.